Right now, after every meal you have eaten today, your kidneys were forced into a state of overwork so specific, so measurable, and so completely preventable that once you understand the mechanism, you will never put a can of soda in your hand the same way again. Not because of your weight, not because of your genetics, not because you are diabetic or at risk of diabetes, because of a biological chain reaction that sugar triggers inside your kidneys 3 times a day, every day, in virtually every person eating a modern diet, regardless of how healthy they feel and regardless of whether any test their doctor has ever run has detected a single sign of it happening. Here is the assumption that is costing millions of people decades of healthy kidney function. Most people believe kidney damage from sugar is a diabetic problem, something that happens to other people, people who are overweight, people who have been told their numbers are bad, people who have been given a diagnosis, not them, not you. And that assumption is the most dangerous one in all of metabolic health science. Because the research tracking 95,783 individuals over 12.4 years confirmed that the cardiovascular and kidney risk from elevated post-meal glucose begins rising below the diabetic threshold in the non-diabetic range in people whose fasting numbers look completely normal. Your doctor checks your fasting glucose. The research says the fasting number is the wrong number to check. The damage is happening after your meals, 3 times a day, and sugar is what is making it happen. This episode covers 4 mechanisms that explain why this is occurring inside you right now and precisely what your kidneys begin doing differently within 30 days of removing sugar from your diet. The hyperfiltration mechanism, the specific state sugar forces your kidneys into where they work at dangerously above normal capacity, silently and without symptoms until they cannot. The fructose-uric acid pathway, the chain of events that begins the moment fructose enters your liver and ends with inflammatory damage inside your renal tubules. The blood pressure connection, the most modifiable upstream driver of kidney decline in the general population, and the one that sugar is elevating through 2 simultaneous mechanisms you have never been told about. And the 30-day reversal window, the measurable timeline within which each of these 4 drivers begins reversing as soon as sugar is removed. By the end of this, you will understand what has been happening inside your kidneys at every meal for years, and you will understand exactly how quickly it begins to stop. Before the research makes complete sense, you need to understand what your kidneys are actually doing, because almost everything most people believe about them is incomplete in a way that makes the sugar story impossible to grasp. Each kidney contains approximately 1 million microscopic filtering units called nephrons. At the top of each nephron sits a structure called the glomerulus, a tiny, fragile knot of capillaries so fine they can filter substances smaller than a single protein molecule. Blood enters at pressure. Waste is separated from nutrients. The cleaned blood exits. The waste travels toward the bladder. Your kidneys filter approximately 180 liters of blood every single day. They are the most metabolically expensive organs in your body relative to their size, and they operate within an extremely narrow band of filtration pressure. Too low, and waste accumulates. Too high, and the capillary walls begin sustaining microscopic damage with every filtration cycle. The glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, is the single number that captures how well this system is working. A healthy adult GFR sits between 90 and 120 milliliters per minute. Below 60, sustained for 3 months, is the diagnostic threshold for chronic kidney disease. And here is the finding that makes the sugar story so specific and so alarming. High blood sugar does not slow your kidneys down. It forces them to work at twice their designed capacity, silently, without a single symptom, for years. In response to elevated circulating glucose, the kidneys enter a state called hyperfiltration, where the GFR rises significantly above its normal range as the kidneys attempt to clear the excess sugar load from the blood. Research documented this precisely. Diabetic patients admitted with severely elevated blood sugar had a mean GFR of 157.4 milliliters per minute at admission, almost double the normal upper limit, before glucose-lowering therapy brought it back to 86.4 at discharge. The kidneys were not failing, they were overworking, running at the pace of an engine operating at twice its designed capacity, sustaining the microscopic damage that comes from running any precision instrument beyond its operational limits for years at a time. And this hyperfiltration does not require a diabetes diagnosis. It begins with every post-meal blood glucose spike. Every spike forces the kidneys to ramp up filtration rate. Every ramp-up imposes mechanical stress on the glomerular capillaries. That stress, repeated 3 times a day, year after year, is the precise sequence of events that converts structurally healthy nephrons into the progressively scarred tissue that defines early kidney disease, not dramatically, not visibly, not with any symptoms until significant nephron loss has already occurred. But here is the mechanism that takes the sugar kidney story from concerning to extraordinary, and it is the one that most nutrition content completely fails to explain. It involves fructose specifically, the sugar in table sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and why it is categorically more dangerous to kidney health than glucose alone, through a pathway that has nothing to do with blood sugar spikes. When fructose enters your body, it does not travel the same metabolic route as glucose. While glucose is regulated by insulin and distributed across most of your body's tissues, fructose bypasses insulin regulation entirely and goes directly to the liver for processing. In the liver, fructose metabolism generates uric acid as a byproduct through a series of enzymatic reactions that activate the purine degradation pathway. And here is why uric acid is not just an inconvenient byproduct, but an active, specific, mechanistically documented cause of kidney damage that operates completely independently of how high your blood sugar goes. Elevated uric acid activates the intrarenal renin-angiotensin system, your kidney's internal blood pressure control mechanism. Research confirmed in experimental models that hyperuricemia induces afferent arteriolar hyalinosis and glomerular hyperfiltration through activation of the intrarenal renin-angiotensin system, even in the complete absence of urate crystal deposition in the kidney tissue. The damage from fructose-driven uric acid elevation does not require gout. It does not require kidney stones. It operates through a purely hemodynamic mechanism that narrows the blood vessels feeding the glomeruli, creates uneven filtration pressure, and produces persistent mechanical stress on the capillary walls that eventually leads to glomerular scarring and progressive nephron loss. Think of your glomeruli as the finest lace you have ever seen, extraordinarily delicate, precisely structured, engineered to filter at exactly the right pressure. Now think of fructose as a system that gradually and continuously raises the water pressure through that lace, not dramatically enough to tear it immediately, but persistently enough that over months and years the structure begins to deform, to stiffen, to scar. The lace that was doing the filtering begins to fail at precisely the points where the pressure was consistently highest. This is what fructose is doing to your kidney tissue at every meal that contains added sugar. Not because you're sick, because the chemistry is operating exactly as the research documenting it operating. Now here is the number that should stop you completely before we move to the blood pressure mechanism. A systematic review and meta-analysis of 5 epidemiological studies found a relative risk of 1.58 for kidney disease among consumers of sugar-sweetened beverages. That's a 58% higher risk of developing chronic kidney disease in people whose only shared characteristic was drinking sugary beverages regularly. Not diabetics, not people with existing kidney disease, regular people drinking what most of the world considers a normal part of daily life. 58% higher risk from a beverage most people drink every day without a second thought. Now, here is the third mechanism, the blood pressure connection, because this is the one that links sugar consumption to the single most modifiable upstream driver of kidney decline in the general population, and the data behind it involves a finding most people have never heard. Your kidneys are extraordinarily sensitive to blood pressure. The glomerular filtration apparatus is a pressure-dependent system, and chronic blood pressure elevation above the range it was designed for is the most consistent predictor of accelerating kidney function decline across all populations and all ages. The question of whether quitting sugar reduces blood pressure independently of weight loss is therefore not just interesting, it is the question that determines whether the kidney recovery benefits of quitting sugar extend to people who quit sugar without losing significant weight. A prospective study tracking sugar-sweetened beverage reduction and blood pressure over 18 months found that a reduction of 1 serving per day was associated with a 1.8 millimeter of mercury reduction in systolic blood pressure and a 1.1 millimeter reduction in diastolic pressure. And critically, even after controlling for weight change, the blood pressure reduction remained statistically significant. Sugar reduction has a blood pressure lowering effect that operates independently of any weight loss it produces. The mechanism is the sympathetic nervous system. High fructose intake amplifies sympathetic nervous system activity, producing a catecholamine surge that raises vascular tone and blood pressure through a pathway completely separate from the uric acid damage it simultaneously produces. Two simultaneous pathways, one sugar molecule, both ending at your kidneys, both measurably reversible within 30 days of removing sugar from your diet. And here is the 4-week map of what reversing looks like, because this is the commitment arc that turns this information into something you can actually track against your own experience. Week 1. Blood glucose variability begins declining. Post-meal glucose spikes, the primary driver of hyperfiltration, become lower and shorter as the fructose-driven glucose cascade is removed from the system. Your kidneys begin receiving a less extreme filtration signal after each meal. The overwork does not stop immediately, but day 3, your continuous glucose profile is already measurably flatter than it was on day 1. A randomized controlled trial tracking free sugar reduction in non-diabetic adults using continuous glucose monitoring confirmed that reduced sugar diets produce measurably lower 24-hour mean glucose levels within the 4-week intervention period. The hyperfiltration signal is already weakening. Week 2. Serum uric acid begins declining as fructose intake drops and the liver's purine degradation pathway is no longer continuously stimulated. The renin-angiotensin system, which fructose-driven hyperuricemia had been activating, begins receiving a less inflammatory signal. Renal vascular tone begins to relax. Blood flow to the glomeruli begins normalizing. The pressure through the lace begins decreasing for the first time in years. Week 3. Blood pressure, which sugar had been elevating through both the sympathetic nervous system pathway and the uric acid pathway simultaneously, begins declining measurably. This is the week where the 4 mechanisms begin reinforcing each other. Lower glucose means less hyperfiltration. Lower uric acid means less renin activation. Lower blood pressure means less mechanical stress per filtration cycle. The kidney is not recovering yet, but the rate of damage has slowed in 3 simultaneous directions at once. Week 4. The kidney has been operating under meaningfully reduced hemodynamic stress for 2 weeks. Every filtration cycle is imposing less mechanical stress on the glomerular capillaries than it was imposing 30 days ago. Not because the kidneys are stronger, because the signals that were forcing them to overwork have been substantially removed. Here is the honest context this research absolutely requires. 30 days of quitting sugar does not undo existing kidney damage. Nephrons that chronic hyperfiltration has already scarred are not regenerated in a month. The evidence connecting sugar to kidney damage is strongest in populations with existing metabolic disease and established chronic kidney disease. For healthy people with normal kidney function, the benefit is better described as disease prevention than disease reversal. The individual mechanisms are well documented and biologically solid. The specific magnitude of kidney benefit from sugar reduction in people with healthy baseline kidney function is an area where more long-term clinical data is still being built. What 30 days does with certainty is this: it removes 4 of the most biologically active drivers of progressive kidney damage simultaneously. It reduces hyperfiltration by normalizing post-meal blood glucose. It reduces uric acid by removing fructose from the hepatic purine pathway. It reduces renin-angiotensin activation by removing the uric acid signal that was driving it. And it reduces blood pressure through both the sympathetic nervous system and the uric acid pathways independently of weight loss. These are not theoretical benefits. They are documented mechanisms that were operating at the molecular level inside your kidney tissue every time you consumed sugar, and they stop operating the moment you remove the substrate they require. Here is the evolutionary reason this all makes complete sense, and it is the frame that removes every ounce of resistance you might feel toward doing this. You are not being asked to adopt a new habit. You are being asked to return to the chemical environment your kidneys were designed to operate in. For the vast majority of human evolutionary history, fructose arrived exclusively in whole fruit, consumed seasonally in modest quantities alongside fiber that slowed absorption and limited the hepatic uric acid cascade. Your kidneys are not failing because they are weak. They are being asked to manage a substrate that your entire renal physiology was never calibrated to receive 3 times a day. Quitting sugar is not a health trend, it is a restoration. The kidneys you will have in 30 years are being shaped right now, today, by the chemistry you give them at every meal. Give them the environment they were built for, and they will perform at a level you have not given them the chance to show you in years. Tonight, remove added sugar from your next meal. Not reduced, removed. Then do it again tomorrow morning and the morning after that. By the end of week 1, your blood glucose profile is already flatter. By the end of week 2, your uric acid is already declining. By the end of week 4, all 4 mechanisms are running at reduced intensity simultaneously. That's the entire protocol, and what it does to the organs filtering 180 liters of your blood every single day is the most important health return you have never been told to pursue. Are you ready to give your kidneys 30 days of the environment they were built for? Drop a comment right now. Did you know before today that sugar was doing this to your kidneys through the hyperfiltration and uric acid pathways? And has this changed whether you will try the 30 days? I read every single one. If this permanently changed how you think about what sugar is doing to organs you cannot see or feel until the damage is already significant, hit subscribe. Every week in this series, I cover this depth of metabolic biology with the precision the research deserves, rather than the surface-level advice most health content settles for. And next, what happens to your liver when you quit sugar for 30 days? The fructose-to-liver fat pathway, the non-alcoholic fatty liver mechanism, and the specific timeline within which hepatic fat begins declining when fructose is removed from the system. Subscribe so you're there when it drops. Your kidneys have been filtering the consequences of your sugar habit for years without a single complaint. They will never warn you until the damage is done. The best time to remove the signal was years ago. The second best time is today.